Hey everyone, this is TH Stories 80, where we narrate fanfiction audiobooks. Now we begin the remastered version of Chapter 3 of An Extraordinary Journey. Let's dive in. Mess Hall, SGC. Even though she had eaten breakfast not too long ago, Willow was still famished. The spell that had transported her to this mysterious Air Force base in Colorado Springs had taken a lot out of her. Colonel O'Neill and Major Carter escorted her to the mess hall, where she promptly tackled 2 slices of blueberry pie. The 2 officers had desserts of their own. O'Neill claimed a slice of blueberry pie as well, while Carter settled for a cup of blue jello. As they ate, Carter and O'Neill began asking Willow questions about her life. They learned that she was a computer science student at UC Sunnydale and a member of the local Wicca group. Beyond that, Willow insisted her life was pretty boring. Of course, she couldn't tell them about demons and vampires. They would probably think I belong in the loony bin, Willow reflected. Heck, they're still trying to wrap their heads around magic being real. So yes, it was probably for the best that she didn't mention vampires and demons. Carter still had questions about Willow's claim to practice magic, but she decided to keep them to herself, for now. After all, SG-1 had encountered the Nox, who had saved their lives using a form of highly advanced technology that behaved very much like magic. However, Willow didn't seem to be using any advanced technology at all. Could it be some form of telekinesis? Carter wondered. The Nox appeared to use telekinesis as well, so it was possible Willow possessed a similar ability without realizing it. Then again, using telekinesis to vibrate air molecules to create light should theoretically also produce heat. Carter hadn't felt any heat during Willow's demonstration. For now, she pushed her thoughts on magic aside. The 2 officers continued listening as Willow talked about her life. They even discovered that she was one of the students who had survived an explosion at Sunnydale High School. Willow explained that the police believed a gas main had been leaking in one of the boiler rooms and that a pilot light had triggered the massive explosion. She had no intention of revealing the real cause, an explosion caused by her group of friends to defeat a giant demonic snake with delusions of taking over Sunnydale after killing off the student body. Yes, they definitely didn't need to know that the mayor of Sunnydale had transformed himself into an old one of the original demons that once walked the earth. Carter and O'Neill then asked about her family and friends. Willow replied that her parents were in Europe on a lecture tour and wouldn't be back until next year. As for her friends, she admitted they were still angry with her over the fiasco involving the wishing spell. She acknowledged that they had every right to be upset. I don't think they can forgive me. That's why I wish to be somewhere else, Willow continued. I wanted to be out of there and be with people who would accept me, mistakes and faults included. She went on to describe herself as the so-called research girl, the one everyone assumed would always need saving from things. Things? Jack prompted, his voice tinged with curiosity. Things such as... Sunnydale has a lot of crime, Willow replied, so my friends think I can't take care of myself. Crime, she thought wryly. The local papers always blamed gangs on PCP for what were really vampire and demon attacks. Again, none of that was something she could share with military. At the same time, she found herself wondering what she should do once General Hammond allowed her to leave the base. Should she return to Sunnydale now that she had calmed down? Or should she take a break from UC Sunnydale and spend a year backpacking around the world? Do I even know how to go backpacking? Willow wondered. They kept talking for another 45 minutes or so. Willow spoke about her decision to stay in Sunnydale after high school and the other places she had applied before accepting UC Sunnydale's offer. The redhead made a conscious effort to keep the conversation light and normal, carefully avoiding any more mention of the supernatural beyond magic. Eventually, an airman approached O'Neill with a message. The general wanted to see him. O'Neill told Willow he would be leaving her in the capable hands of Major Carter before heading off. Once he was gone, Willow asked Carter if she could take a look at some of the rovers they were working on. Carter responded with an apologetic smile, explaining that the projects were classified. We do track space debris, Carter added. You wouldn't believe the mess orbiting this planet. Want to take a look? Willow nodded, and a minute later, they left the mess hall and headed toward Carter's lab, General Hammond's office. "Come in, Colonel," General Hammond said after O'Neill knocked on his door. O'Neill entered the general's office, took a seat, and then asked, "I take it you've spoken to the president?" "Yes," the general replied after a brief pause. "We had a lengthy discussion about our unexpected guest. He agrees that, given Miss Rosenberg's unique abilities, she could be a significant asset to this program." Hammond leaned forward slightly. "However, he is concerned about how she managed to gain access to this facility in the first place. For now, she will remain a guest on the base, and we'll keep a close eye on her." The general tapped his fingers against the desk before continuing. "This incident will be classified above top secret. Only the president will have access to anything we file on Miss Rosenberg. We don't want the NID or Senator Kinsey catching even a hint of what's happened here. There's no telling what they might do if they learned about her talents." The mention of the NID and Kinsey unsettled O'Neill. They had a habit of going rogue, and there was a very real possibility they could harm Willow if they ever discovered her abilities. And O'Neill had to admit that the redhead possessed something extraordinary, whether it was magical or not. So, to be on the safe side, Willow's method of arrival would be omitted from all reports, along with any mention of magic. "Do we tell her about the..." O'Neill nodded toward the briefing room windows that overlooked the gate room. Showing a civilian the Stargate without a completed background check was highly unusual. Still, if they truly intended for Willow to become part of the SGC, it might be a risk worth taking. As if reading O'Neill's thoughts, General Hammond said, "After speaking with the president, I've decided to fast-track both a background check and a security clearance. You and Major Carter have spent some time talking with her. What's your assessment?" O'Neill summarized his impressions from their conversation at the mess hall, relaying everything Willow had shared. When he finished, the general let out a low whistle and nodded. "So, we may be looking at another Samantha Carter?" Hammond asked. "That's how it feels, sir," O'Neill answered. "She's nervous and a little rough around the edges, but I think she's got what it takes to belong here." He paused before adding, "I also get the sense she's holding something back. Maybe it's the magic, or maybe it's something else. Either way, I think she'll open up more once she has time." The general nodded in agreement. "I'll have the non-disclosure agreements prepared. Once the background checks come through, we'll meet in the briefing room." O'Neill added that he would arrange for Willow to have access to a phone so she could contact her friends and let them know she was safe. "That's fine," Hammond replied. "I'll also make sure the paperwork for the background and security checks is ready." "Oh," the general said just as O'Neill reached the door. "Remember, Jack, no mention of magic. But I do want Miss Rosenberg to write a report on her magic use. I need a clear picture of both the benefits and the risks. That report will go directly to the president." "Understood, sir," O'Neill said before heading toward Carter's lab. Carter's lab, HTC. "So, what's going to happen to me?" Willow asked as she sat across from Major Carter, who was working on a computer. Carter had shown her photos of space debris orbiting the planet, as well as recent images of distant dust clouds and nebulae. However, she couldn't allow Willow to see recent rover designs, since those were classified, and besides, those designs weren't stored at the SGC. Just as Willow finished asking her question, Colonel O'Neill stepped into Carter's lab, his hands tucked into his trouser pockets. "Sir," Carter acknowledged, rising from her chair. "What did General Hammond say?" The colonel nodded, then turned toward Willow. "General Hammond spoke to the president, and he wants you here." "Here?" Willow echoed, pointing at the floor. "I don't even know where here is. I was told I'm in Colorado Springs. I know I'm underground since the elevators were heading down. This is the 25th floor, and the elevator was going down." Willow cut herself off, inhaled deeply, then whispered, "I don't know where I am." Carter stepped in gently. "I'm guessing General Hammond has decided to run a background check on you." Willow turned to her, surprise written across her face. "And a security check," O'Neill added. He didn't miss the flicker of surprise on Carter's face, nor the worry that settled over Willow's. "Really?" Willow squeaked. A rush of thoughts followed. Would they uncover her hacking for Giles and the others? She had never been caught, and there were no police reports on file. "I should be okay," she reassured herself. Still, the idea gnawed at her. Could something like that surface during a security check? She hoped not. She had to admit, though, that for military personnel, Carter and O'Neill seemed approachable. They didn't appear eager to pass her off to someone else. And Willow figured people working here had to be smart enough not to make fun of her. Carter nodded. It's standard procedure. He was a little concerned about, O'Neill continued, you wishing yourself here of all places, hence the security check. Willow waved her arms before blurting out, I swear the spell doesn't work anymore. She gestured toward O'Neill and added, I wish you would bake me a cake. A beat passed. Willow's eyes widened as Carter and O'Neill looked at each other, then back at her, then at each other again. You feel like baking a cake, sir? Carter asked, her tone brimming with curiosity. O'Neill shook his head. No, but I am kind of craving the chocolate mud cake in the mess hall. Been craving it since I walked in. Willow exhaled in relief, and both officers relaxed with her. If it did work, Willow pointed out, you'd be baking a cake. O'Neill clapped his hands once. All right then, we'll be meeting the general in a few hours, or whenever the background check comes back. Same goes for the security check. Hopefully. At that moment, a voice crackled over the intercom, requesting Colonel O'Neill to contact General Hammond. The colonel crossed the lab, lifted the wall-mounted receiver, and dialed the general's extension. Willow and Carter watched as O'Neill responded with a series of, uh-huh, yes sir, Carter's lab, and planning to get some cake from the mess hall. He replaced the receiver and turned back to them. Hammond wants you to submit your fingerprints, O'Neill informed Willow. You'll also be getting a retina scan. For the background check, Carter clarified. O'Neill then glanced at Carter. They'll handle the prints and retinal scan here. Walter's on his way. 20 minutes later, Walter entered the lab carrying a large case and a folder. As he set up the fingerprinting station and camera for the scans, Willow opened the folder and found several forms that needed to be completed and signed. While Walter was busy, O'Neill leaned in and quietly reminded her to keep out any mention of magic. Taking a few calming breaths, Willow filled out the paperwork, carefully omitting anything magical. She then had her fingerprints taken and her retina scanned. Once everything was finished, Walter thanked her and hurried off with the prints and scans. After he left, O'Neill turned back to Willow and relayed Hammond's next request. Willow listened closely, nodding as she absorbed the explanation about why she needed to write a report about magic. She agreed without hesitation. Now that that's done, O'Neill announced, motioning toward the door, I say we grab some cake. She then fixed his gaze on Willow. No more wishes, Red. Not even fake ones. Got it, Willow replied, nodding earnestly. Anyway, O'Neill continued, is there anyone you want to call? Willow pressed her lips together, her thoughts drifting to Xander, Buffy and the others. Had they calmed down? Even if they had, did she want to go back to Sunnydale? She was away from it now, experiencing something entirely new. The truth was, she didn't know what she wanted. If this place was checking her background, and the president himself wanted her here, wasn't that a good thing? It was different, mundane even, compared to Sunnydale. Could she be okay with mundane? And if she chose to move on, what would she say to Buffy and the others? How would she explain being in Colorado Springs? If I tell them I made an accidental wish, they might get angry again, Willow reasoned. With that in mind, she looked at O'Neill and said, let me think about what I want to tell my friends and my parents. Can I call them later? Sure, O'Neill replied. Moments later, they head back toward the mess hall together. To be continued.